Carson City School District Board of Trustees meeting to order. It's 6:30 p.m. Thanks for coming. We're going to start off with item 1, adoption of the agenda. This is for possible action. Okay. Motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 2 is the flag salute. Trustee Walt, would you lead us off?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is the superintendent's report. This is for information only. Superintendent Fueling.
Thank you, President Cassiopo. Good evening, trustees. Just a couple things tonight. First, just want to say from the district, our heart goes out to those impacted by the Davis fire. It's been just a devastating event. And thank you to all of our firefighters and responders who have been out there trying to put that thing out. Last night, I was able to attend the Carson High School open house as a father, and superintendent, sort of, but I was keeping an eye on the principal mostly. But it was a fantastic event, very well attended, very positive. All the clubs and sports had tables out in Senator Square so people could go around and parents could learn a little bit more. I think great, especially for all of our freshman families who are still learning a little bit about what Carson High School has to offer, but it was a great evening and certainly appreciate everyone who stayed there and attended and were a part of it. On Wednesday, the 18th, coming up here in 8 days, we will have our first Community Connections event of the year, formerly termed Community PLC. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about our English Learner program here in the district, not only will you learn about that, but we'll feed you a little bit if you stop by. That will be at Carson High School in the library.
What's the date on that again?
Wednesday the 18th at 6 p.m. start. At the Thursday meeting of the NSHE Board of Regents, they formally approved transferring the high-tech center on Carson High's campus over to the Carson City School District. So that is, it's been a long process, but glad that it is nearly over, and Mr. Russell is helping us with finalizing documents, and that should all be completed here in the near future. And so we will move forward with all of the necessary things that need to happen in terms of WNC's presence and what will stay and what will they will decide to move out of the building. But happy to have a little bit of a finality to that. Lastly, this Thursday and Friday, the football team is playing against Douglas. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Not awkward. You think you can write for some shows? That was very dramatic. Let's see. Carson High, do we have any representatives from Carson High here? I don't believe we have any student representatives here tonight. Yeah, we'll go through the board, and I just seen if we had, you have theirs though. Okay. Please, thank you. No, go ahead and do it now. We'll just keep in fitting with the agenda.
Okay, so for the Carson High students, they were unable to attend this evening, so the report that was shared with me from Ms. Kramer, the leadership advisor. The two biggest things are today's students and staff wore purple or teal in honor of the World Suicide Prevention Day. And then this Friday is homecoming assembly to kick off next week's homecoming festivities. It's really crazy to think homecoming's already coming, but yes. So attached is the flyer of the events for next week. And wow. So Monday, it is Dress Up Hawaiian Beach Boys. The lunch will have a club fair luau in the Senator Square. Evening will be a bonfire and movie night, 6:30 to 8:30 on the practice football field. Tuesday, February 17th, dress up as red, white, and blue, party in the USA. Wednesday, September 18th, is dress up country, rancho, take me home, country roads. The lunch is a line dancing in the Senator Square. Evening is dramas Wednesday night live at 7 p.m. at the community center. Thursday is dress up rhyme pairs book for rhymes of Eminem. Okay, Friday is dress up band t-shirts, Battle of the Bands. Lunch will be a pep rally in the Senator Square. Evening is a parade at 6 p.m. Football game starts at 7 p.m. and it is a whiteout. And it will also have the crowning of the homecoming king and queen at halftime. And then Saturday, September 21st, is a homecoming dance, 7 to 10 in Senator Square. Tickets are on sale at the Student Finance at lunch and after school, $15 at the door, must have student ID, and no bags are allowed. And that concludes their report.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe we have any Pioneer students here, so we'll move on. We got, okay, move on to item 4, board reports, board member comments for information only. Why don't we start off with Nevada Association of School Boards? Rich?
Yes, excuse me, thank you. As everyone knows, we had our joint meeting and training class this last Friday and Saturday up in Elko. The training was good. The meeting was very good. They had a lot of discussion. Some of it revolved around what different districts are doing with their cell phone usage. Quite a bit of discussion about that. There was discussion about some of the legislative committee, their meeting, and they'll be providing updates as they prepare the legislative agenda. That'll be coming out in the future, and we'll get that to you guys. And then there was discussion about, let me check my notes here, school safety, and a lot of discussion about that with the current events out in Georgia. And then also there was discussion about that the districts need to maintain local control of different issues such as the start times, which is being discussed by the state. And according to Vice President Walker, the state's going to be sending out a survey in the near future about it. Is that correct? Yeah. And so there was a lot of discussion about that. And Executive Director Harris just wanted to thank all the school board members throughout all the districts for all the work they're doing. And during the discussion at the meeting, we also approved his new contract, which will run from August 2024 to August 2025. And we also approved his last year's evaluation. And that pretty well concludes my report for NASB.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to board reports. We'll start off with Trustee Crossman.
Thank you. Report from Dr. Ward over at Fremont Elementary School. She wanted to let everyone know that they had a fabulous fall festival. Even though it was a little damp, it did not dampen their spirits. And they were so appreciative of the staff support for this amazing family event, and they are looking forward to doing it again next year. Next week at Fremont, Social Studies Week is beginning, and they look forward to submitting some fabulous essays for our essay contest. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Varner.
Yeah, before I move on, if I could go back to NASB for a second. We have our meeting coming up, or our conference in December coming up. And if you haven't already contacted Renee, please do that so she can get everything set up for that. And I know that she's going to bring some paperwork to our next meeting. And then moving on to Boardwick Bray, Principal Raquetta wanted everyone to remind everybody that they're having grade level back to school night potlucks coming up. Families are asked to attend and bring a dish to share. During the meetings, they will have a potluck meal together, and then the grade level teachers will present important information about what is happening this school year. And then the families will also have the opportunity to visit their child's classrooms. Meeting dates, once again, pre-K and kinder is September 10th. First grade is September 11th. Second grade will be held on September 12th. Third grade, September 17th. Fourth grade, September 18th. And fifth grade, September 19th. And that's my report for Boardwick, but I do have one for Fritz also. Principal Brown wanted everyone to know that they'll be conducting a lockdown drill on Wednesday, September 18th. They'll go through all the checklists. Teachers check doors, make sure they're locked, turn on the lights, place students out of sight, etc. If parents have questions about their drill, please have them contact they can contact the administration at Fritz. And that's my report for Fritz.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Walt.
Thank you. I'll start with Empire Elementary School. Ms. Virgil is very excited. I mentioned that there might be a possible grant for the playground that I'm seeking. So hopefully that will work out. But Empire had a back to school night last week, and it was well attended. They had a lot of families to sign up for the newly established PTO, which is, I believe, going forward, and they're meeting every third Wednesday, and they're working to improve the parent involvement at Empire Elementary School. And then for Carson High School, Mr. Carstens, thank you for your report. So CHS is off to a great start with their kids. After 3 weeks, they are seeing a marked decrease in negative behavior that has been on the rise in previous years. Their annual open house event took place last night, and it was very well attended. I attended as well. Didn't have a student there. He's in Jumpstart, but it was very well attended, very well organized as well. You mentioned that you had a good showing of parents and students, and the format was a little different from previous years, but it was given the opportunity to showcase the students and what they have to offer. It also allowed for the students and staff to connect with the community through conversations and general questions and answer sessions. And it was just a reminder to everyone that it's always a good day to be a senator. I had the opportunity to talk to many parents there and students, and I kind of just went around and asked what they thought of the cell phone policy. Not one negative, not one. And so, and I do, even through the soccer games and whatever else, which, by the way, boys soccer won 7-0 against Douglas High School yesterday. Just throw that out there. One parent had a really interesting comment. At first, at the very beginning of the year, she was all against it, and she was extremely verbal about being against it. And so then yesterday, as we were talking, she said, in all honesty, she said, it's a great thing. And the reason she was against it is because she allowed herself to not be the parent. She said, I wanted to be able to get in touch with my son during the day. And she said, now as a parent, it has just made her become more organized before school starts to say, hey, this is what I need my son to know. And she said, in all honesty, it helped him because during the day, he's getting these text messages from his mother, and it's nagging. I need you to do this, and after school, I need you to do this, and, after you do this, I need you to do that, which increased his anxiety. So he's enjoying it because mom's not nagging him during the school day. And mom is forced to be organized before school starts to say, hey, all of this. And she says, and as a parent, that is what I should be doing. So, so it's been really great. Like I said, I haven't heard anything negative, so very, very well.
Thank you. Trustee Clapham.
Thank you. Ms. Crookshanks from Mark Twain, she kept it very brief this evening, but she wanted to let everybody know that she's very proud of the Mark Twain School as they are celebrating some accomplishments with MTSS. They recently won the Diamond Award achievement, I guess, through MTSS from the state. So that's pretty exciting for them. Ms. Robinson, who is with us tonight, thank you for joining. I need this up. She had stated that students started their weekly home check-ins yesterday in advisory class. Each Monday, students review their grades, citizenship, and attendance in Infinite Campus, and then set personal goals for the week. This information goes home on Monday nights for parents to review and sign. Students bring it back on Tuesday. The goal is to encourage the students to communicate their progress with their families and spur conversations about achievement and attendance. Carson Middle School's back to school night is Tuesday, September 17th from 5:30 to 7:30. Families can come, have the opportunity to follow their child's schedule and meet their teachers. The doors will open at 5 p.m. for families who would like to see the resources they have to offer in the school district. And she hopes that many families will join. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Walker.
Good evening. So I'll start by thanking Trustee Crossman, who not only picked me up door front at my school and chauffeured me to Elko, but she brought snacks and beverages to make sure we were happy the whole way. So she has a career as a Uber driver after she's done on this board in January. So thank you, Laurel. This weekend we had great professional development focused on balanced governance, and it really led to deep discussions with not only our colleagues on this board, but colleagues from across the state about how school boards could really work together and effectively meet the needs of their students and their community. So it was a great weekend. Seeliger Elementary School has finished their MAP testing, and they are working on goal setting, and they are getting ready to start their book fair, which will start on September 16th, and they are inviting families to join them at the family book fair on 9/17. And then they're also excited about their fall band and choir concert, which will be September 19th. And you know, in elementary school, that first band concert is always very interesting. And then you get to compare it to the spring, and you say, man, these kids learned a lot this year. So it's going to be a great opportunity for the families at Seeliger.
No report this evening, but I do want to also extend the invitation to the families and the district as a whole to attend the multilingual learner event, as Superintendent Fielding mentioned. We are very excited to share with the families in the community about all the support and services that we offer to the English learners and to all our diverse student population. So we hope to see a lot of people attend, and families especially. So we would love to share what we have in our district for all our students. So looking forward to seeing a lot of families. The 18th of September at 6 p.m., correct? Yeah, 6 p.m.
Okay, well, thank you. And I do not have a report tonight for Pioneer. I apologize, but I will start having those next meeting. So we're going to move on to item 5, association reports. And Mr. Wallace, anything? Okay. Any other association reports out there? Viewing the vast crowd? Nope. We're going to move on to item 6, public comment. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none in person, I know we have not received anything via email, so we're going to go ahead and close public comment. And we'll move on to item 7, informational update on the CCSD summer school program for the 2023-2024 school year. This is for discussion only. And we have, I'm not sure who's all doing, but Shauna Wooldridge, Dan Karstens. I know Mr. Conley won't be here tonight, and A.B. Robinson. Oh, great. Sorry, please come on up. I gave you your chance, and, you know.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Shauna Wooldridge. I'm Dean of Students at Carson High, and have been in charge of the secondary summer school that's done at Carson High School for the last 2 years. So I have all of our Carson High students that are part of summer school, as well as the 7th and 8th graders from Carson Middle School and Eagle Valley that are at Carson High. I did include some data from Pioneer Summer School that was not technically under my purview, but I did pull in some of their data and asked Amy Strom for some of their information so that we could include it as well. Okay, so we are going to go over a whole bunch of summer school data. Mr. Fueling asked me this morning for some additional data, and I got to put in a whole bunch of graphs to look at a whole bunch of different things around the summer school data. We are also going to talk about the supports during the school year. I'll do the ones for Carson High School that will also extend to our Pioneer campus. And then Amy Robinson will do Carson Middle support, and Mr. Thetford will do Eagle Valley, and then they'll talk about the students that were retained in middle school this year. Okay, so our summer school goals are really to help the students get closer to graduation for high school students and closer to promotion for 7th grade students. And so for our high school students, our goal is always to get to 24.5 credits for our standard diploma. There are some other ways with our adult ed diploma that have some different criteria, but our goal is our standard diploma. For the last 2 years, we have allocated 300 seats for high school students. We do all of summer school in the tech center, so we take over the entire building and every single space that we can use within that. For middle school students, at Carson High, we take the ones that are close to promotion for 8th grade or 7th grade. We take all of the 7th graders, and so they typically need 1 or 2 classes in order to get them to where they need to be. But especially for the 7th graders, if they have time to do additional classes, we do encourage them to do additional classes. And there are a number of them that did quite a few. We allocate 100 seats for middle school students. The year before last, we just the counselors kept putting in for kids on the spreadsheet, and we accepted them. This year, we attempted to have 50 for each middle school. Due to students not showing up, the numbers are a little bit skewed, but just due to, we also have a number of students that tend to show up on the first day to enroll, and that does include siblings of Carson High students will come and want to enroll as well. So we do end up with a whole bunch for that purpose as well. So our summer school is that purpose of helping students who are credit deficient. So I wanted to kind of look in on how many students we have that are credit deficient to kind of see where we are at collecting those students and helping them get where they need to be. So for high school students, the state sets that number as less than 5 credits per year. So that's what I use to kind of go through the different grade levels. For middle school students, because if they are 4.5, they don't promote. I kind of use those numbers to get us a rough estimate of kind of where students are. So for high school students, we typically find that our lower grades are more credit deficient. We do a great job within summer school, after school credit recovery, as well as online learning as a course their senior year to get them where they need to be. So that number does decrease over time. For the middle schools, we definitely see that there are more credit deficient students that are 7th graders. And then with the efforts that the middle schools do and summer school, we're able to get them to lower amounts. But we still do have quite a few students that are credit deficient. So for the 452 high school, we have 300 spots. We also have other ways to get them the credits they need, so that's not our only avenue. And for the middle school students, we're only really able to accommodate about half of the ones that are credit deficient just based on space. So for our data, we did a really great job of getting our students who came to us to complete classes. So we had 318 total students. Any students, when they finish and we have additional time, we do call students on the wait list. So we do end up with more than 300 that we are able to get in and work with. We had 290 that completed at least one class, so above 90% for just student completion. Our courses, we were well above 90% with 588 courses completed, which is amazing. We had 28 students who were withdrawn, which is a lot lower than we have in previous years. The 3 who were withdrawn for the high school students were all due to cell phone issues, which I thought was really interesting in kind of where we're going. And we've always had a really clear cell phone policy. So that part was not new for summer school students, but it was the only thing that we removed students for this year. We had 25 no-shows, a number that were removed for attendance, and 6 that made it to the end and were not able to finish the class. We do try to loop them in the fall to see if they can finish, because we can reinstate the scores that they had gotten for the work they did. And there are a number of them that do attempt. I'm not sure how many were able to finish that class, but we did have a number that had plans to finish the class.
Clarifying question. So on the last slide, previous slide, you said that you guys could accommodate about half of the middle schoolers who are credit deficient. So those who are not able to get into the high school, do we have programs available at Carson Middle School in Eagle Valley for those students?
Yeah, so we offer credit recovery and intervention courses to try to help them get those credits. So we focus primarily on the 8th graders so that they can promote to high school. But yeah, we start early on the credit recovery.
Thanks.
So for Carson Middle, we ended up with 45 total students. 38 of them were able to complete at least one class. So 84% were able to complete a class. We did get 75 courses total with Carson Middle School. We did have 7 who were withdrawn, 3 for discipline, and 2 of those were for just kind of normal classroom behavior, kind of stuff, just not working the way that they needed to and continuing to be disruptive to the other students. One was for a fight, and so there are some different reasons that kids can be removed for it. We did have 4 that stopped coming. We did have 1 no-show 8th grader, which is pretty unheard of, but they already had a plan for that student, so it was not really a surprise, but is a little bit kind of disheartening. For Eagle Valley, we had 62 total students. 58 of them were able to complete at least one course. 105 total courses. We had 4 students were withdrawn for attendance, and a couple of no-shows, but they were all 7th graders. So for Carson High numbers of credits earned, so a half credit is 1 course. And so most of our students who come to summer school, their whole goal is to complete 1 course. They just have 1 that they need to do in order to get them where they need to be. Sometimes these are football players who failed a course in the spring and have to complete that course in order to play in the fall. Sometimes those are students who just couldn't get that 1 class and they are close and they can come and do that 1 class. They can typically get done in the first week and then they don't have to keep coming. We did have 1 student who did 11 classes. That's that 5.5. He was 1 class away from being another graduating senior. He was a student who had years of attendance issues and was finally at a point where he was able to make some progress. And Bob Chambers is helping him get across with a diploma through adult ed. So he was very, very close, but couldn't quite get there. But we did have a number of students who did many classes, and we always try to get them to do as many as they can with the time that we have.
Really quick. And what is that time? How long is summer school?
So it goes through the end of June. We do have some issues with scheduling this next year, which I had talked to Mr. Fueling about because our calendar year ends so late. That really limits the amount of days that we have for summer school. So It's typically about 17 days. With this next school year, our calendar only allows for 13. And so we're going to have to get a little creative with how we do some scheduling things with that.
So do they have to like put in so many hours for each course?
No, the Apex courses are set to be something that they already had experienced, so they were close to passing the class but couldn't quite get there. A lot of them are attendance issues, but typically they have been in that class for enough to get some content. And so our credit recovery classes are for them to kind of get a refresher of the content and then just work through the quizzes and tests in order to get there. There is a hour, so they're supposed to get to 20 hours in order to get through the class. We do a solid 6.5 hours, so they're able to get to that 20 hours pretty quickly over those days. Mm-hmm. For our middle school students, we definitely did see the 1 to 2 class was what they got. We had a couple students who were able to get 1.5 credits, which would be 3 classes, and one, I think there were 2 Carson middle school students who were able to get 4 classes. Those are typically our 7th graders, and for a number of those 7th graders, we don't see them in summer school as 8th graders, so we're able to help them get to where they need to be. And we spend a lot of time talking about, like, if you do one more English class, then you won't have to come. If you don't do that one more English class, you're going to have to work really, really hard to get through both semesters. So we try to get them to at least get to the point where they don't have to do so much work if it's already been something that they've struggled with. For Pioneer Summer School, they had 28 total students of just Pioneer students. So the 8th graders are kind of in within our data that were over there at Pioneer, not on the credit side because they do a different thing, but they had 25 students that completed classes. They were able to get 77 total classes that were started and 70 were completed. There were 4 students who were not able to pass the class and then 3 that stopped coming, and so were removed for attendance. Okay, now we're going to dive really deep into a whole bunch of information. So if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of look at the summer school data in a whole bunch of different ways. So something that I found that I was wrong about and had to share that with Mr. Carson, it doesn't happen very often. I was really on the assumption that we have mostly 10th and 11th grade students because that's typically where we see like that switch come on with our sophomores and our juniors, and they do a lot of classes. And we still do have that part, but our numbers are pretty even between 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, which was very surprising to me. We did have 9 12th graders this year, and we were able to get 7 of them to get the classes that they need to be able to be part of our summer school graduation, which was pretty awesome. For Pioneer, they mirrored the data that I thought we would have with a lot more of the 10th and 11th grade students and less 9th and 12th grade. For our middle school data, Carson Middle sent us quite a few 8th graders this year. Typically, we have more 7th graders than we do 8th graders, which is what we see with Eagle Valley. And we did have a number of Carson Middle School 7th graders that didn't come. They were on the list, but they didn't come. So we'll probably see more 8th graders as well this next year because of it. For ethnicity, we definitely have some things to dive a little bit deeper into for our data around that very tall bar for our Hispanic and Latino students. And I looked back on the previous year and our data was almost the same. And so we have had quite a few of our Hispanic students that are a part of this. We do have ELL paras that are part of it. We do have teachers that are a part of it. We have tried to get as many bilingual teachers as possible to help those students. So we do have systems in place to help with that. And these are all students that are able to be successful in summer school. When we were looking through the star rating data, Our Hispanic students have been among our chronic absenteeism spotlight for the last few years. And we did see a decrease in our chronic absenteeism for our Hispanic students this last year. So I'm hoping that as we go through the next couple of years that we'll start to get a little bit more even to our actual school demographics. But it's something that I want to dive a little bit deeper into to see kind of where that falls. For Pioneer, they had more of their Caucasian students than Hispanic, and that probably mirrors their demographics a little bit better. For Carson Middle School, their data was very similar to Pioneer, and Eagle Valley is very similar to ours in that we do support more Hispanic students within our summer school for those two schools. For our free and reduced lunch population, we are pretty even, but we definitely have a little bit less that are free and reduced. For our snacks and lunch, the district has graciously provided that for our students, so it is something that they all have access to, and they don't have to sign up for it. For Pioneer, as well as both middle schools, saw more free and reduced students than non-free and reduced students. For our McKinney-Vento, we do have a small population that attends summer school in all 4 schools. It's something to take a look at to see how we can get a few more of our McKinney-Vento students, because we do know that they are a population that we want to make sure that we service and give the same opportunities that we have available. Before I move on, any questions on demographics? Okay.
No questions, but I want to thank you for providing that information. And honestly, it saddens me to see what is going on.
It was a big aha. It's definitely something that we'll dive into a little bit deeper. I really thank Mr. Fueling for including that as a question, because I pulled all of that data this morning and included it in. And it was a big aha that we need to figure out what's going on there, and kind of how we, maybe it's how we help the students within our actual school day. That's kind of my first thought. But I do want to dive a little bit deeper into it. In talking to our online learning teacher, Ms. Cooley, her kind of observational data is that data doesn't mirror the students that are in her online learning classes or the students who come after school. So it could be that we are collecting all of the students, we're just doing that in different ways. And I will say that our summer school it is very effective, especially for those students. They are able to get quite a few classes and get closer to graduation. So it's one of those, like, it looks bad. I'm not sure whether it is, but it is something I want to dive deeper into.
I'm almost wondering if this is something that should be brought during the professional development trainings, because I feel like with this needs to be a conversation that needs to start at the beginning of the school year so that we can have better results at the end of the year.
Absolutely, I agree.
And then parent involvement. I am a strong believer that we need to engage the parents. We need to engage the parents so that they can work with us. If we provide this data to their parents, I can honestly tell you, they will be on board. They will be on board.
And I will say, we have a number of Hispanic mothers that come like year in to register them for that first day, that are bringing a number of their students. I do see a lot more of moms bringing their kids into summer school to register because they feel that that's important. We do. We have a lot that come on the first day with their moms to get signed up. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah.
If the district's doing so many incentives to work on chronic absenteeism and it's not successful with that population of students, so maybe doing some kind of outreach with those students and figuring out what are those incentives that we can work with to entice them to attend school regularly, because I think that's the key, is getting them into the school. You know, there's a big discussion that has started with the State Board of Education regarding competency-based education in lieu of seat time. And, you know, with the portrait of a learner going towards kids being able to show their competency, because the premise is if a child fails the class, they probably did attend the class and they've done the seat time and they need to do some remediation and make that up. And so I think that pay attention to that as you're looking at summer school, because as those changes come, I think it's going to allow you more ways to really meet the needs of our students that need that extra bit of push to get over the finish line, which I applaud them for trying, because that's huge, especially those 12th graders on there. You know, that's hard to go to summer school after 12th grade.
It is.
And
yes.
they're fighting through, and it's like, get that done. So,
Yeah. And we did our summer graduates, we had 8 that were summer grads, 7 from Carson High and 1 from Pioneer. We did extend the time for those summer grads because they were very close. And we had 3 wonderful educators that put their time in to make sure that the students could get that last class that they were working on. And so Ms. Cooley worked with a student. Michelle Quintero, one of our counselors, worked with 3 students to help them get there. And then Jill Council at Pioneer worked with the student from Pioneer. And she was so happy about being at our summer graduation and graduating because she really needed that diploma. And she has a baby and she is working for the state and really needed that diploma in order to keep her job. And she put in a lot of time and effort in order to get there. And it was really amazing.
You know, I'd be interested to know if the reason, you know, that population is having to go to summer school, if it is because of absenteeism throughout their career, and how many of them have to work and be, you know, reason of why. I know when it was just a couple years ago, out of 18 soccer players, 2 had to quit soccer because they had to work. You know, their work had to start like at 1 o'clock. And does high school still do credits, work credits?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So, you know, I don't know if that is a way to help them as well. Because if work is something that they have to do to help the family with inflation and whatnot, if there's something that can be worked with that.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to Mike's point, is talking, you know, however we have to do it, talking to some of these students, even if 10% of them give you decent feedback, they probably indirectly speak for a lot more than just the 10% you're getting information from. You'll see some common themes. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I think that's a nice direct way to try to figure this out.
Yeah, we try to get that data as much as we can and talk to our families. Our intervention specialist, Brenda Ramirez, talks to a number of our families and tries to collect data. It is a challenging population to get in to talk to at times. She does a great job, as does Leticia Servin, does a great job at connecting with families and getting informations around barriers and what might be the struggle in getting them into school. So we have a lot of data kind of in different places. As far as work is absolutely something that we have seen for years since COVID, where a number of our high school students went to work in order to help their families, and we still see that impact. I do feel like it's lessening a little bit. That is one that I don't hear quite as much as far as why students are not at school, but it is still something that is a factor.
I'm wondering, and you probably don't have this data, but how many of these Hispanic kids are enrolled in the EL program? Or how many have graduated or been passed out of the program? And is there some problem we got to look at the EL program to make sure these kids are getting what they need out of that program?
So with it, you want to talk?
Sure. If you look at our access testing and everything, we've increased our scores there. If you look at our star rating system, things have gone up. Also this year, we do have our intervention class. We call it AMAT, all means all time. And what we've done for our EL students, and whether they're part of summer school or not, we have a group of teachers that we're focusing in on them with smaller class sizes there so that we can focus on the data that we get from our exact path diagnostics as well. So we're trying to hit it from multiple angles. And try to figure out, where else are there some other gaps that are providing a barrier for their learning. And so we're trying to remove those barriers and provide that support that we can within our class schedule, not after school, not before school, but within our actual schedule. So we are providing those supports, and if you look at all the data around intervention times, and if you do it right, that it's going to increase their learning. So we are doing that as well.
Good, because I know part of the star rating, they evaluate the EL program, is that correct? So we should have some data on that to see how the schools are doing, the different schools are doing, the star rating, I guess, or whatever, how they measure that data. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're obviously giving advice because we hear data and we worry about that. But I think one of the nice things is when you look at this system, and it truly is a system that is helping middle school and high school students, achieve. And so I think that just the fact that you're all working together and making sure that kids do have those avenues of success and that second chance, I think that's huge. And so take our suggestions for what they are, not criticism, but true suggestions for making this system even better, because you're onto something here, and I think that we all value what you're doing.
I really loved this. I know we do a great job. I see it with the students. I love working with summer school. It is incredibly stressful. The first week, I will tell everyone that I hate it because it is so much. There's so many students, and I try to quit every year. But I love it. It's so amazing to see the growth. It's great to see how many classes that they're able to do. And I am just in awe of all the students when we get to the end of how much work they put in and how much they were able to achieve and how happy they are with that achievement. I mean, I work with students that in, my normal job, we are butting heads because they are just never in class. And then they get to a point where they come to summer school and they bust out 5 classes and they are on track to graduation. And they are telling me how much they really should have been in class in previous years. And it's such a different, the interactions are different. They're so positive, and students are just trying to work hard to get where they need to go. I really love it. But I loved being able to dive into the data and look at it and see that there is something that we do need to, at the very least, be aware of. And more than that, we need to see if those are students that we're not servicing during the other times of the year, so that we can make sure that they have all of the opportunities that all of our students have, is really kind of my takeaway with that, of just wanting to make sure that all of the supports and we're going to go, I have them pretty. We're going to go over kind of all the different supports that each of the schools do, so that things for this next year. We're changing up a number of things this next year, and just so that we have kind of an idea of what we have in place, and then we can make that next piece a little bit better too. So for our supports, and as I was putting this together, I realized how amazing the middle school logos are and how ours is it was hard to find a really good one that kind of matched. So I still love the Senator Man, but I also really love this one that we have on our t-shirts this year. But anyways, we have credit recovery during the school year. After school, online learning is available for 9th through 12th grade students. They come after school. They complete a contract with Ms. Cooley to attend for a certain number of days and how much they need to for the classes that they need to do. We work very, very hard to keep our in-seat online learning class to just 12th graders because that is the most important, and they see that light at the end of the tunnel. Any of the students that are put in there in lower grades typically sit on the same class for a semester or a year because it's just not hitting them quite yet. And we get to a point where we don't have as many seniors that are needing those classes, but we definitely start each year with a lot of seniors that need to complete credits. And then when they complete their credits, they get an off-campus, which is a really great incentive as well. For academic supports in previous years, we have offered after-school tutoring. We have shifted that support to our intervention block because we want to make sure that all of our students have access to that support, and it's not just the students who are able to stay after school. We do have online tutoring through paper. Our counselors hold parent-teacher conferences to find ways to support students. Our social workers come in to help and find ways. We have so many people who work so hard to support our students in the way that they need to. And we're, something I didn't put on here, but we are going full force into our intervention team at Carson High so that we can look at academics, attendance, and behavior to see what is necessary to remove those barriers in order for them to be successful within the academics that are done in their class. For attendance supports, because we know that that is such an important one to talk about with credit deficiency, we have our intervention specialist that works so hard to have conferences with students and parents in order to put in restorative attendance contracts. We work with our counselors, social workers, and teachers to communicate. And we're really working with our teachers to communicate how much they want those students in their class. And having those messages of, I really miss your student today. I want to make sure that they're in class, and having those kind of documented interactions so that we make sure that there is a positive message around attendance, which can often be so negative. And then we communicate with students and families to advocate the need for attending classes and how important that is.
So at the middle school level, in seventh grade is when they first start earning credits. So it's a brand new concept to them. And even in sixth grade, grades are a brand new concept to kids because before that they're 1, 2s, and 3s, and now they're ABC. So just communicating that to parents and helping kids learn what a grade is, and then they move right into earning credits. So we work really hard to have that credit conversation, like at back to school night, we hand out flyers. This is what your student's going to be working on, credits, and we'll have teachers talk about credits. And at our conferences, we talk about credits and how important it is to pass classes. So we have credit recovery courses starting the second semester of seventh grade, because that's when they will first be credit deficient if they are. And then we also have intervention classes. So this year we've expanded our intervention classes to all 3 grade levels, and we're communicating with elementary schools to find out who is coming up that require those interventions so that we can just continue with that and support those kids kind of seamlessly right into 6th grade. And so our intervention classes and our credit recovery kind of work together so kids can work on both, fill those gaps, but also earn the credit at the same time. Our interventionist has worked on our credit recovery curriculum to make it more engaging for kids so that they're not just sitting in an online class and trying to, get through it. So she took the Apex tutorials and our grade level benchmark unit assessments and created actual credit recovery courses for them to be on site. So that's hopefully helping with the engagement piece for them. We also work with, let's see what else is up there. We do after school homework club. We did last year and we will do it again this year. Our counselors have meetings continually with parents and with kids. And I mean, toward the end there, it's almost daily. Like, come on, guys, we gotta get your credit. Our real goal though is to work on our classroom instruction so that we can, what goes on at school during the school day, so that we can engage kids and reach those kids who are just not engaging. Because the goal is to have nobody who's credit deficient and nobody who needs that summer school. And so that's where we're working and looking at grades and having our teachers look at who's passing, who's not, try to figure out what's going on with our kids who aren't passing. Try to engage them with attendance, getting to school. And our attendance got better this year, but it definitely can still get better. So we're going to continue with that and work on team building at school. We'll do quarterly rewards for attendance and academics and citizenship. We have our counselors do their academic plans. There's a lot of stuff that we do to try to engage our kiddos to come to school. So it's always on our mind and always what we're working on. How do we engage them and get them here? And our goal is that they pass those classes so that they don't have to end up in summer school at all.
All right, I will, I'm still recovering from some junk, so if you don't understand me, Conley would tell you I'm from Arkansas, so people don't understand me anyways, but we'll, so at Eagle Valley, I'm glad y'all asked about this because we spent a lot of our time discussing how can we better support students. And it's amazing how much time we spend on this specific topic. Over the summer, when we text each other back and forth, it's about how do we support our students that are struggling. And we have a lot of the same stuff like credit recovery with Apex. 8th grade students can also enroll in additional courses. So when we have an 8th grade student taking a 7th grade class, trying to catch up. The interesting part about that is a lot of times it's those relationships with the students that you have that helps them be successful. We found that if a student doesn't have a relationship, then it's hard to get them to be successful in anything. And so as you talk to them, as you communicate with them, as the counselors meet with them, and we meet with them, and we talk to the parents, it's a constant trying to figure out how can we support you better. And sometimes summer school is the only option. Me personally, I don't want to use my summer to go to summer school, but some of our students don't mind that. So academic supports, we do have intervention classes both for the 6th and 7th grade. We didn't do it in 8th grade this year. 6th and 7th grade, based on a number of different factors where we looked at kids and trying to find that right student where we think if we put them in an intervention class, will they find that success and get out of that bubble or get off the bubble to push them over a little bit more. Been a little bit of parent resistance from that. No student likes to have their elective taken away from them, but at the same time, the end goal is what happens when you graduate from high school. No more how do we get you to high school, but then how we put you in a position where you can be successful at that level as well. So that's what the intervention classes are geared toward is how can we help catch you up where you can find success. Next, the grading policies encourages teachers to create a pathway for success. We're constantly talking about grading and the effect it has on students and how can we better meet the needs of students. And when you talk about grading, obviously, if you come home and you have an F, it has an effect on the child, especially if there's no way to make that F up. If I know there's no hope, we've had this discussion for, I guess, 22 years now. If I've got a 35% in a class and there's no way for me to pass, then why am I going to try? And then it just becomes a behavioral problem. Now it's classroom management. So we try to find ways with grading is how can we create a grading system where a student still can find success in what they do. And a lot of that is our teachers working together. They do a great job in PLCs, professional learning communities, of trying to find ways to help individual students, especially those that are struggling. Counselors regularly review academic plans with students. And I will say this, our counselors are continually meeting with students day in, day out. Retention meetings to tell kids, meet with parents to say, listen, you're on the verge of not making it. What can we do to support you? Is there anything that we're not offering that we could offer? In the past, we've had after-school programs. We're going to talk about that, I believe, next week, of how can we offer after-school programs, because we have a lot of kids that really don't mind staying after school. Like for some, it's good because they can get homework done. For some, it's because you get a free snack. For others, it's just a nice place to be where I can be around my friends. So you never know the reasoning behind it, but we have a lot of kids that enjoy staying after school to work on stuff. Teachers also open their classrooms during lunchtime. We have a number of teachers that give up their lunch to help kids. We had a meeting yesterday with a student. And a student Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I think it is, every day at lunch, he's going to his math class to get extra help so he can catch up. So it's one of those things where we have parents that want their kids to be successful, and it's one of those things where we're constantly trying to find ways to support that. One of the things that myself and Trustee Ramirez talked about last year at one of our Student of the Quarter recognitions was how do we get parents into the building? How can they come and see so we can talk about that support system? And we're working on that. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks from tonight, I think it is, we're having a state of the school where we're going to invite the parents and invite the students and invite everyone in and say, here's where we're at. Here's our current reality. Here's what we need from you to help us be successful. And we're hoping everyone in the community shows up. But it's one of those things where as we look at how we get parents involved, and the parents that are more involved in their kids' lives, the more successful they are. So really, when we have those conversations about what supports we offer, a lot of times it is, how can we get parents more involved in what we do? Because it's not just engaging kids, it's also engaging parents. As you get to middle school and high school, there's more hands-off than elementary school, even with my own kids. Because my own kids, I look at their grades and go, how did you get to that? So that's what we do at Eagle Valley, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of people working, trying to figure out what supports are needed, because it's almost kind of like your individual plans where there's not one size fits all. So it may be after school for one kid, or lunch for one kid, or in the morning for another student. What I will say is, out of the teachers we have, the staff that we have, they're willing to bend over backwards if they need to make ends meet for any student. And like I said, I've been in a number of districts. I'm working different capacities, and at Eagle Valley is by far one of the ones where the teachers give up a lot of stuff to help if we can get the students and the parents involved. So.
Retained students. So this year at Carson Middle School, we had 6, actually it ended up being 7 last week, because we had a student who kind of went MIA the end of 8th grade, homeschool, and just came back. So she's going to have to do 8th grade again. So it's heartbreaking to have kids retained. It really is. And like, I'll just mirror what Mr. Thetford said, our teachers bend over backwards to help these. I mean, you really have to work hard to fail a class, because if they engage at all, the teachers will work with them, you know, anything they can do to help them pass. So 3 of our kids really didn't even have enough credits to get to Pioneer Academic Academy, which is really, I mean, so in middle school through 7th and 8th grade, kids have an opportunity to earn 8 credits. You need 5 to go to high school. If you have 4 or 4.5, you get to go to Carson High School summer school. If you have 3 or 3.5, you can go to Pioneer Academy. And as long as you attend and complete the Apex, the program that they have, you can go on to high school. And so we had 3 kids who didn't even meet that requirement. And one of those was the kid who didn't come to summer school. So, but they're back, and we're working with them, creating a plan for them this year so that they can be more successful. They're a little bit more motivated this year to pass. And then 3 kids didn't make it through Pioneer Academic Academy. So we brought them back, and they're going to be with us again. So that's a high number. We don't usually have 6. It was a high number this year. But they're in intervention courses. They're working on that credit recovery, and, just hoping to re-engage with school.
So we retained 1. Anytime you retain a student, you look at a number of different factors and try to figure out what's best for the student. And in the past, we've seen success with this, especially if the student and the parent are both on board. We've seen success with that. It also supports for next year, which would be this year. I'll go ahead just real quickly here. The intervention class, we talked about that, monthly awards and rewards through PBIS points. We also have quarterly academic and behavioral assemblies. We call them recognition rallies, recognizing kids for doing good stuff. The unique part about this is a lot of times we have kids that make all A's and you recognize them. They're used to being recognized. You have kids that play sports, they're used to being recognized. What you don't have is a kid that goes from an F to a C being recognized, because we don't recognize C-level work. The problem is, maybe for that student, that F to a C was a huge leap. Maybe on the map, on your map growth, maybe if I gain 15 points on my RIT score, it may be huge for that student, but it may not be as big for another student that's already in the 250s. So trying to find ways to recognize the students, and we also play games. What I would tell you is I would encourage you to come. We'll get you into a game. You'll love it. I promise you it will not be the pie in the face, because I got that last year and it was not fun. So, do what? No, I didn't do the duct tape, but the pie in the face, I had whipped cream in my nose for a month. I think it was whipped cream. It may not have been. I don't know, but I'm telling you, the kid went up with it. It wasn't I should have instructed the kid first, like, this is how this works. You hit and go down, not up. But he got all of it. Oh, all right. So I'll sign you up. So Also, too, parent workshops. We're always reaching out to parents, and the MTSS system. We're working through that, trying to make adjustments to that. So that's for this year. We're optimistic that we're going to see gains. We saw gains last year. We've seen gains over the last couple of years, but sometimes those gains are very targeted, and sometimes you miss other areas that you could have hit. Sometimes you catch other areas that you don't mean to. But our goal is how can we start recognizing more kids to do better things? And we feel like we're doing an all right job at it. But we also know too there's definitely room for growth. So kind of like y'all said, when you talk about suggestions, we're open to suggestions. We tell kids all the time the only way to make this better is with your input. Student voice is important. And if the students don't voice what they like, I promise you, at my age, I'm not a 12 or 13-year-old kid. I've got one at home, but I have no idea what she likes because I try to listen to it, and I'm like, this is mind-boggling. So if y'all have ideas for us, let us know as well. Like I said, we're wide open, and if you want to come play a game, let me know. I will get you in it.
Okay, and that's really the end of the presentation, but I really just want to thank you for whatever questions you had that prompted this, because it was so great to be able to look in on the data as well as just share the amazing work that we do and our teachers do in helping support students, because it really is amazing. And it's really nice to be able to look in and see some areas where we can kind of look and see what we need to do to make it better. So I really do appreciate you for asking these questions so that we could put this together and look at the information.
We appreciate everything you and your staffs are all doing. I mean, yeah, we don't ever want anybody to think that we're looking down going, gee, you could be doing better, you could be doing this. We can all do better. The question is what's working, maybe, what's the biggest bang for our buck kind of thing. And it's different for every student is the hard part.
Yeah.
So we appreciate just the combined efforts of everybody. I know kind of on a lighthearted side of this same thing is I've been chatting with this one student a little bit who has had issues to say the least. And early on, like the end of last year, I would say, what's going on with you? And I just don't like school. And I would say, well, let me ask you this. If you don't like it so much, why do you want to do it twice? Get it done. But it's funny how some kids that kind of resonates with. And it's like, yeah. And this kid came back, and not just because of that, but, kind of a light bulb opened up, at least at the start of the year, and they're engaging more. And a lot of it is on their end, their ability to engage. And, maybe the skills a seventh grader has in that, maybe they're not quite there yet. And in eighth grade, unfortunately, they got to start up, but maybe that's when they peak, or maybe it happens in high school. But I think just constantly figuring out what works for each of these kids, and I know it's hard, is the way to do it. And then maybe just a thought, and you might do it, but kind of like after the fact, like you had said, some kids said, boy, I wish I would have paid more attention earlier on. But maybe asking some of those kids, hey, if you had to do this over again, what could we have done to have connected with you then? So you're talking about the students in the trenches now, but also the ones that finally made it through.
That's a really good thought.
I don't know, just
Yeah.
a thought.
Yeah. A lot of them are tied to attendance. Like the ones that I
Yeah.
hear that quite a bit, they just had attendance struggles. And when they start to do a little bit better in the school year, then they come to summer school or some of our other areas and do make some progress there. It's like when that light bulb comes on, then everything gets a little bit easier. It is interesting. We always hear the like, I'll just do it in summer school, right? Who cares whether I pass my class? I'll just do it in summer school. That lasts for about the first week. Like they're excited. You'd think that they hadn't seen their friends in a month. And they're excited to be there and their friends are there and it's easy and it's great. And then as kids start leaving and we clap and celebrate every student that finishes summer school, and as the amount of students get less and less and less and their students or their friends finish, and we start really hounding them on, well, you've got some more time, let's do another class. They really don't want to be there anymore. But they still come because they're working stuff out. And so they're just we have to make deals. Like, I promise I will not ask you to do another class if you just finish this one. So we're able to get them a little bit further. But that argument lasts for about a week. And then after that, it's painful. And some of the kids, they'll do 1 or 2 classes and we're trying to get them to do a third and they don't come back for the third. And so there are some where they had the potential to do more and just couldn't sustain it. But yeah, we always hear that like, hey, I'll just do it in summer school. Well, the ones who have done summer school for 1 or 2 years, like they know how that works. And they're the ones who are typically the most motivated to get classes done. Our juniors do great in getting a lot of classes done because they're trying to make their senior year easier. They're trying to not have to do credit recovery. They're trying to not have to do a second core class that they really don't want to do. And so they really do turn it on and work really hard.
Oh, Rich and Molly. So Rich, why don't you go first and then Molly?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say what a great presentation, a lot of data. And this is the stuff that I personally, as a board member, and I know everybody else likes to hear. But my question really is I know everybody is working hard on your end. What could we do as a board to make things better? I mean, do we have to redirect some budget resources? Is there any policies that could be put in place?
So
mean,
yes,
just-
for next year. We already talked about it. We've used the ESSER funds for the last couple of years. And so there's some benefits and some disadvantages to the classes being free. For the students that we're really trying to make do multiple classes, it's really a big benefit of saying like, hey, you're gonna do one more because like you're here anyways. And I know we've talked a lot about like this next year is when we start getting back to the point where it's paid. But then in talking to AJ, like we lose money on it either way. And having the food available to students is a huge must in something where they can go if they want. And our nutrition services are amazing in getting stuff out, and they bring fruit and they bring different things just to have there for students to have. And it's amazing how many students get fruit and take it to their classroom for the afternoon and eat that. That's a huge benefit. And I really, if I run, the finances and stuff, like my big thought is to have a cap to the amount of classes they have to pay for. So, or do a set fee, like summer school is whatever the set fee is, and you can do as many classes in there.
What's the cost for a class now? I mean, when they start charging again?
So, what is it, in terms of like what our kids charge to take the class?
Well, they're not being charged now, right, because the district's
Correct.
paying for it. But if they have to start paying, I'm just curious what the cost would be.
So prior to COVID, I believe it was $150 for a class.
I think it was a class, yeah.
And then 100 if they qualified for reduced lunch, and I think 50 if they qualified for free lunch. Somewhere around there. It's been a little while since I've looked at it.
And there were certain things that, like, if you qualified for ELL, then, or you had an IEP, then that was
free.
yeah.
Free at that point. Okay. Yeah. So there was, so clearly there were adjustments made based on the needs of the kids, but there was also, for I think for many kids, a little more incentive to the fact that they had to pay, and so, you have skin in the game with. Like I had to pay for this. I want to get my credits done, make sure I graduate if I'm in 12th grade, whatever it is. But also maybe too for kids to try to take care of some of this stuff during the school year and avoid it on the summer school side. So
Yeah, I think it would be good to have some sort of monetary piece to it. So parents could kind of help with that incentive of like, I'm paying for this, so you're going to get this done. But we do definitely trick a lot of students into doing multiple classes because they have the time anyways, like we're here, let's get it done. And so I am super good at talking students into taking additional classes. And it's a huge benefit. I mean, we do it with 7th graders, and then we don't have them for 8th graders. We do it with our sophomores, especially, and our juniors, so that they can have an easier time their junior year and their senior year. And there is still a benefit to that aspect of it. That would make paying for each class individually cumbersome. But if we did have some sort of just flat fee for summer school, or you pay for 2 and the rest after that are free, I would be super on board with that and think that would be super beneficial for our students.
Maybe as we do our next budget, that's something we can take a look at. Thank you. I have one other question real quick. the scheduling problem for next year. What is the problem? You can't go past a certain date?
So typically, and I don't know exactly how that works, but we typically cut it on whatever the last weekday is in June because of the budget and how that starts in July. We did talk a little bit about maybe some Saturday options, or if we do have the option to extend it a little bit into July, that might be an option.
Yeah, on the fiscal side, it becomes a fiscal year issue because our fiscal year ends June 30. And I don't know that it's the end of the world. There may be some academic implications with that. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a little messy. And then ultimately, we really don't want people having to go into July, our staff or students, so trying to figure out ways around that.
Yeah, so we may, like, we'd kind of problem solve some like optional Saturday days for the students who need multiple credits. I mean, we had an issue the last 2 years, not issue, but we had a change the last 2 years with Juneteenth falling, and that took away a day. And there were students who were always kind of asking, like, can I come anyways? And it's like, well, you can do the work at home, but like no one's here. So I think that if we had some optional Saturdays that students would be there for those. And I know for our teachers that kind of bank on the amount of money that they would get, I think we would have teachers that would sign on to do those Saturdays as well. So I think that could kind of cover some of those, because I am a little bit worried about not having the number of days that we typically have.
Great. And thank you very much. Could you send that presentation to us?
Yeah.
The one you gave us tonight?
Renee has it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Renee has it? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything you guys do.
Yes, thank you for your time and thank you for the presentation. I had asked for this to be on the agenda for the reason of previously, I don't know that I've ever known that we celebrated the graduates of summer school. But when we got that email saying, please, and, I apologize, I wasn't able to make it, but please, join us as we celebrate those who have graduated from summer school. And I think that that is a big celebration. A lot of time and dedication is given by staff, by, administrators, by teachers, and the support that the school district is giving to these students, I think needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be, thanked, so thank you for doing that as well. And we need to celebrate, even, it might be a minimal, but your presentation showed that it was definitely not a minimal celebration and of what you did for summer school. And so I thank you for doing that. The presentation was great. The numbers are great. It's only going uphill from now, it seems as though. But the amount of support that these students are given even during the school year, the before school, the lunch times, the after schools, the summer schools, it takes a community. And I really hope that those who are watching and the paper that's there, recognizes the good that the school is doing to get these, students to graduate and, to get them to succeed, to get them to the high school. I hope that's the message that is sent from here. So thank you.
Our parents were super appreciative, and we really did celebrate that of the students that were there. And they put in so much time and effort, and our staff did as well, just so much time and effort to help those students get where they needed to be. And that they just weren't there in, the traditional sense for a variety of different reasons. And it was pretty amazing to see them reach that milestone.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And again, please extend our thanks to your staff. I mean, I think they need to be encouraged too. It's, everybody's doing a good job.
They're
We
amazing.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 8, informational update on student enrollment in the Carson City School District for 2024-2025 to include the potential budgetary impact on fiscal year 2025. This is for discussion only, and we have Mr. Winward presenting.
All good news? Yes. Well,
Always good news.
of course. While I'm pulling this up, I certainly enjoyed listening to Mr. Thetford and his accent. And from my accent, you probably can't tell that I am from the deep southeast. corner of Idaho. It's a little bit different than his. All righty, so do you guys want the good news or the good news first? Since it's all good news. All right. Okay, I'll just share news and let you guys decide from there. So this is just kind of our look from September to September, a snapshot of the beginning of the school year. Once the dust is settled, our 10-day waiting period is over. Students that we haven't seen are dropped from our rolls. And so we just kind of go over where things look this year compared to this year last time. We'll look at enrollment numbers, the change we have from grade to grade, and then also the change we have at each school, and then how that affects our budget potentially, since this is how the year is as of now, not the year as it wraps up. So this graph is a little very similar to last year. There's some color coding to kind of follow. If you look at for the kindergarten line, for example, the 2023-24 column is the number of kindergarten students that we had last year as they all moved on to first grade. This column of 2024-2025, that green bar kind of follows down. So you can see we had 415 kindergartners last year. Of those 415 kids, we have 407 first graders this year. That fourth column overstep grade change is that difference between how many kindergartners we started with last year versus how many kindergartners we started this year, 8 less compared to last year. And then if you go back to the final column on the right, there's the year-to-year change, kindergartners last year versus kindergartners this year. So that, I would have to say that that's a nugget of good news there, is 415 kindergartners last year to 448 this year. That's 33 more. Definitely a little bit difference in the trend that we've had lately, where our kindergarten class have been a little bit smaller year over year. And so, each of those years follows. You can kind of look and see, how many 10th graders we had that went to 11th grade all the way through. The yellow highlighted cell, so grade 12, we had 591 12th graders that graduated. And then if you go to the 24-25 column, the kindergartners, that's just a comparison. How many kindergartners do we have to replace our outgoing seniors? So, and that's a number that we've seen. Our larger classes are graduating, being replaced with these smaller classes, which largely makes up for our decrease in enrollment. 591 12th graders graduated, as compared to 448 kindergartners incoming. So that's a change of 143. If you look at the totals at the bottom, the overall change is 37 less students. So sitting a little bit prettier than we have given the last couple of years of trends of decreases. Any questions about that slide? That's all good news? All right. Well, this is good news because this is really just the same information provided a little bit differently. Just looking at each school, so you can kind of see, do we have schools that where we have a huge influx of students or a huge reduction of students? As you can see, they're pretty level. A couple of things I will point out, just a difference in the data. Our early childhood centered kids now live at Empire Elementary. So from 23 to 24, that went from 22 students to 0. Empire went from 411 to 428. So without those students moving from early childhood to Empire, they would have had a 5-student reduction. And then the second thing on there is Pioneer Academy. Now those numbers are rolled in with Carson High School. So that 189 students that we have there, they've rolled into Carson High. So that's just a little bit of difference in the data. But again, overall, a reduction of 37 students from last September to this September. Very happy with those numbers. It's a little bit smaller than kind of what we anticipated. And so what does that mean for dollars? When we prepared the May budget, we budgeted for 6,935.2 students. And as we're sitting as of this morning, we have 6,996, which is 661 students more, which makes me smile. So I don't know if you recall, last year when we were presenting this, we were down about just shy of 100 students, which calculated into right about $1 million deficit. If you'll notice in the second bullet point to the right, this early in the year does not amount to be, I have a yellow, excited highlighted in yellow. The word last year was concerned, so it wasn't not an amount to be concerned about. So with the same lack of concern we had last year, we're going to apply that to our excitement this year, because it's early on, and typically as we go throughout the year, we tend to trickle have a few students trickle out the district just as the year goes on.
Your mission is to do like Mr. Sadler, and he's constantly recruiting new employees. So your job is to get out there and recruit new students.
All righty. Any recommendations on where we start? Do you know any kindergarten through sixth graders? And they will be your recommendations will be thoroughly vetted.
We don't know where to look, but we understand food seems to be, a good thing to encourage.
Yeah, we'll try and have some fresh fruit for them when they come. So overall, really good news. I'm happy to sit where we're at. Again, this is that $600,000 that's a figure based off of where we're at today. I'd much rather that be green and positive than red and negative. If, as you recall from the budget overall, we had about a $900,000 deficit. So if these numbers hold true throughout, that gets us much closer to a balanced budget, which I would love to see as the year goes on. All righty, any questions?
I see Trustee Varner over there smiling, so we're good.
It is.
No, that was good.
I
I
will-
appreciate that.
I will not disagree with that.
Yeah. Good. See, no questions. Thank you. No, we appreciate it. Thank you,
All
Spencer.
righty, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 9. Discussion and possible action to adopt a resolution in support of Invest 2025. It's a document created by Nevada superintendents outlining the needs to improve student achievement in Nevada. This one is for possible action, and Superintendent Fueling is presenting.
Thank you, President Cassioppo. This evening, which this item is a biennial item that comes usually a few months before the biennial legislative session. The Nevada Association of School Superintendents, together as a group, vote, and it has to be unanimously together on what are kind of the primary platform ideas going into the legislative session. Quick historical note, apparently in the late 90s, early 2000s, every district just kind of did its own thing. And so all the rules were scurrying about trying to figure out what was important to them. And then Clark and Washoe, I think, probably laughed at that, and they kind of did their own thing. And so a legislator told the group at that time, what are you guys doing? This is a mess. You need to be together. You need to be, singing the same message. And so soon after that, this document began to lay out what would be shared with legislators as a common document of all the items that were of importance. It started as, I think, a 10-page document, and the superintendents later learned that legislators don't like to read 10-page documents, and so it has been whittled down to really just a one-pager, 2 sides of the primary items of concern going into the legislative session. The other part of that, I will say then, is the group individually, each superintendent goes to their board and asks for their boards to pass a resolution in support of this, just kind of solidifying that unity going into the legislative session. The 5 primary items that made it to the final document, of course, funding, that never really goes away, and I'm very, very thankful to the governor and legislators last session for the increase in funding that we did receive. However, after 30 years of not getting great funding, there's still a ways to go to make that up and to make that up to our students. One of the pieces of this specifically I just want to point out, so right now, if a student, there are what are called the weights, and this refers to the last sentence in that first, looking in the second page of the 5 bolded items there. The top one says provides optimal educational funding for students of Nevada. The last sentence of that paragraph says fund pupil weights for all categories a student qualifies for rather than just the highest weight. So currently, if I have a student that qualifies for special education services, and they're an English learner, and they are considered at risk of not graduating, while there are weighted funds that go when that a district may receive if a student is identified that way, you only get funded for one. I would argue a special education student that's an English learner that's at risk of not graduating costs a heck of a lot more than just someone who qualifies for one of those categories in most cases. So the ask is to recognize that when kids are qualifying for more than one category, that you would receive funding for all of the categories for that student. Provide conditions for innovation for a learner-centered, future-ready system where students develop competencies outlined in our Nevada State Portrait. There is the State Portrait of a Learner. We have not fully engaged with that project, but it is a project, their final document. They came out with an excellent final document about things we would like to see for our kids. And really, a lot of it has to do with modernizing what is in statute right now to make education more flexible, to give students more opportunities in their educational journey. The third one is recommending a revised accountability system. So you've heard of the NSPF, and I could talk about this for a long time. There are likely better and different ways to look at how we judge our schools. And so that is a big concern within the group of superintendents. Provides an investment in school mental health for students and staff. All of school districts are struggling with student mental health. They're struggling with behaviors in schools and in classrooms. So trying to put together a sustainable funding stream to help pay for continued support in these areas. The last one, investment in a safe and secure future-ready learning environment. Effectively, what that comes down to is asking for continued support for safety improvements in all of our schools, and also to help deal with aging infrastructure of our schools, which it's getting more and more expensive, and it's especially expensive in the rural areas. I just read that Tonopah is building a new elementary school. It's going to be serving 164 kids, and it will cost $25 million. So it doesn't help that Tonopah is not, easy to access. And so a lot of our very rural communities really struggle. I mean, that would be hard enough for us to figure out, but it's a whole nother issue in some of these other communities. I talk about how at this point, we would never be able to replace Carson High School because the high schools they're building in Washoe are $250 million. Like we can never come close to that dollar amount. So this is just asking the legislature and the governor to look at other options for capital project funding. That is really the document as a whole. And the superintendents would ask for your support in this being kind of our platform going into the session. And so it's for your consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Molly?
So one of the, within the document, the resolution, it states that that the Carson City School Board of Trustees encourages the state legislature to fully fund the weights assigned to the pupil-centered funding plan, so all students. So are all school districts in favor of the 21-page plan? Or is there part of that plan that we see that, okay, I'll just come out and say it. So I'm not, yeah, I mean, why not, right? Because within that plan, it states that the cannabis tax. But to my understanding, the schools are not receiving that tax to the amount that the legislators, first put out to do. So if it's in this plan and it's saying that this tax is meant for education, but education isn't getting it all, shouldn't the plan be revised a little bit for the next legislative session to ensure that education is getting the tax that's out there?
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Wilt. That is an excellent question. One of the reasons the state went through a revision of how education, K-12 education gets funded in starting in the 19 session and was implemented in the 21 session was to try to fix that exact problem, because what had happened was the cannabis tax did officially go into the pot of money, sorry for the pun, for education. I mean, you could see it in the numbers. What wasn't as clear is that other funds flowed away, okay? And so right. And so the idea was with the new setup to, I guess, to show it more clearly there was a lot of confusion as what all of the different funding streams going into education were. It ended up that there were, I think, almost 80. It was really just a complicated mess. So they cleaned that up, and you can still see that the cannabis tax does go into I think there's now 9 funding pieces that go into the state. Now it's called the State Education Fund. However, there is always the opportunity to adjust the state's general fund contribution into the state education fund. And so I won't say that it's not impossible that something similar could happen, but it would be a lot clearer to see it if it did happen again, where, hey, the cannabis tax went up by $20 million, but look, the state reduced its general fund contribution to education by $20 million, right? So you could see the money, yeah, you got more, but you may have lost some on the side. I don't know of a way to ensure the way that the pupil-centered funding plan was written. It was initially written to be very restrictive, where the amount of the general fund contribution could never be reduced unless there was a recession. The final language on it gave some latitude. And so that's where there really was an effort to try to lock that in so that didn't happen ever again. But there is some latitude the way it's written currently.
So with that, because I know it was written by, the state and by that department, are all of the superintendents in favor of the plan?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think every district may not agree with every part of it 100%. But overall, I mean, truly from what it is much easier to understand what money's going into the system, how the money distributes out of it. There are things, and the example I'll use is the way that they distribute the weighted funds equitable, considering the needs of our kids? I think that's a really fair question, because I don't think it is. And there's actually several layers to that I won't get into now because it'll extend our discussion quite a bit. But there are some districts, Esmeralda, Eureka, and Story County, that are all still in what's called a hold harmless state, where they're still getting funded what they were per pupil, almost the same per pupil as what they were getting funded in fiscal year 20. Right, so those 3 districts, they don't like that. At the same time, they get paid a very high amount per pupil. So it's not perfect, but overall I would say it's a better system probably than what it was.
I think it's really important that we are all working together, and I'm sure NASB's going to work on supporting this like they did the last session. And I think when you really look at, we had a candidates forum in, this winter, and a local lawmaker said, we gave you all this money, what do you want from us? And I think we have to be ready to justify the fact that we've been underfunded for a very long time. So AJ, keep your slides about the 1940s funding plan primed and ready to go. But I think that also we need to make sure that we're educating that just because you put money towards a system doesn't mean tomorrow it's fixed. It's going to take additional resources because we still don't have our funding to a level that we really need to impact student learning. And then from there, it's still going to take time to put all of the things into place that these kids need to be successful in. I think that, sure, it's going to have to be incremental because there's no way we're going to be able to just wake up in, June and everything's fixed. So we're going to have to build up. But I think the understanding, and we need to advocate that we do have to keep marching forward. So that was a huge investment, which, there was a surplus in our budget. It wasn't really that we increased revenue anywhere to pay for this. So we need to make sure that that investment continues regardless of what the realities are as we move forward, because these kids deserve the best education we could provide.
Okay. So, and I think I'll ask to meet with you afterwards because I don't understand, the rate of increase for the per pupil funding from, FY22 to FY23. Because if you say that, there's districts that are held, the harmless, they increase though their per pupil at the same rate that we did, which is a minimal percentage. So we went from $7,494 to $7,594. But so did Esmeralda. They had a little increase as well. And if they're the hold harmless, but we can do that later. And that's why I just think that, yes, I mean, this plan isn't perfect, but I just need, because it's within the resolution, that this is something that you, that you're comfortable with.
Trustee Wall, I'm happy over the next hour to explain some of those. Okay.
Do we have any more questions for Superintendent Fueling? If not, this is an action item.
I got it. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt as submitted the resolution in support of Invest 2025.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 10 is approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Matt seconds it. Any board discussion? Any public comment on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11 is informational items. This is for discussion only. Any questions on the board on the discussion items? Seeing none, how about item 12, request for future agenda topics? Okay, seeing none there, must be getting hungry. We are adjourned. I know one of us is getting hungry.